I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today we're testing the 2025 update to the Mitsubishi Outlander, and it's a big one. When the new gen Outlander came out, we thought it looked far better, it had a much nicer interior, and it was just a better all-round vehicle than the SUV it replaced at a pretty fair price. But now things are changing because one of the things the Outlander didn't do so well was ride and handle properly. And Mitsubishi Australia has intervened on behalf of the world. The suspension and steering of this vehicle have now been adjusted right here on Australian roads, and globally, this is the tune which is going out to all customers everywhere. So have the changes worked? We're going to be getting into all of that in today's video. We'll also check out the other alterations to the Outlander for this year, including some even nicer refinements inside. And I'll also let you know what this vehicle is going to cost you, because prices are up by more than just a little bit, which might change the Outlander's level of competition in the market. Before we get started, hit subscribe down below. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by Budget Direct. Before I walk you through the changes to the Outlander's interior, let's talk price, because this SUV still starts from a touch under $40,000 before on-road costs, stretching to $57,990 plus on-roads for this top spec Exceed Tourer petrol. The plug-in hybrid will be above this, but we don't know its pricing in updated form yet, so stay tuned to Chasing Cars for that one. Now, pricing is generally up about 5%, a little bit higher on some models. The Exceed and the Exceed Tourer get more expensive, and they also lose their third row, which Mitsubishi once charged $1,800 for as an option. So in real terms, these ones get quite a lot more expensive, but you are getting some nice inclusions in the cabin for your money. Now, the basic seats and upholstery stays the same across the range, although this Exceed Tourer replaces its old tan two-tone interior with a new color called Brick, which is a little bit more red and dark brown in its tone. Looks really smart, although you can't get a black interior in the Exceed Tourer, which is interesting. Got to step down to the Exceed for that one. Now, the big reason you'd want to go for an Exceed Tourer might be its black roof, but for me, it would be the Yamaha Ultimate stereo in this vehicle, which is one of the best car stereos on the market today. It's in a Mitsubishi Outlander. Who knew? But this is a big upgrade for 2025. In fact, all Outlanders get a new Yamaha stereo, but it's a more basic but still decent sounding unit in all the grades. Just this Exceed Tourer gets the top spec one. Also standard on all Outlanders now is this 12.3-inch high-definition central touchscreen, which is bigger than you used to get before. It was an 8-inch unit. Wireless Apple CarPlay was always standard. It now picks up wireless Android Auto, which is good, plus the Mitsubishi Connect smartphone app. So the car has a Telstra SIM card, 5 years service is thrown in for free. After that, you got to start paying for it. We don't know how much as yet. And from your phone, you can start the climate, you can unlock and lock the vehicle, see all your trip information, you can set up geofences and speed alerts and stuff if you're going to let your kids drive the car. And while you can start the ignition from the app, the one thing you can't do is drive off. You still have to have the physical key in your pocket to validate with the start button here. So no high-end smartphone as key, but it's still something Mitsubishi is looking at for a future update. You're also getting a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, which looks good. It's very customizable. And one thing I love about the interior of this Mitsubishi is you're still getting rotary dials and knobs for a lot of the key controls, which you just memorize the location of so quickly. The ergonomics in this vehicle are pretty good. Seat comfort's all right. Storage is decent. Bigger cup holders, faster USB-C ports, some storage under here, water bottle holders in the doors. Does it feel super expensive and premium? No, it doesn't. The appearance is pretty good. You can go digging around for some slightly dodgier materials and kind of imperfect fit and finish if you really care about that. But remember, Mitsubishi is not trying to be a premium brand. Its CEO told me you got brands out there who want to be 1-star, you've got brands who want to be 5-star. Mitsubishi wants to be your 3 or 4-star hotel. And you know what? I think that's fine. Jumping into the second row of the Outlander, how suitable is this vehicle for your family? Well, it's actually pretty decent, and the base of the seat has actually been adjusted for 2025, and I can tell you it supports your legs, which is more than you can say for some SUVs in this class. Comfort levels are pretty decent, and even material quality is okay, with some softer stuff stretching up to the top of these quilted doors in the Exceed Tourer, which also has heated rear seats to match the heated and cooled front seats, so a nice little luxury down there. Plus in your Exceed and your Exceed Tourer, you're getting a third climate zone. But what you're not getting is a third row, because that's been deleted for these fancy Outlanders this year, and I'll explain why in the next scene. You are, however, getting sunblinds in the back, which is a nice feature, big seat back pockets, and the view out and the visibility of this vehicle, generally speaking, is actually pretty decent because it's quite boxy. Moving around the back of the 2025 Outlander, the visual changes are relatively subtle. The big one you'll pick up is that all grades get new alloy wheel designs, including this pretty handsome machined finish on the 20-inch wheels, which you get on Aspire, Exceed and Exceed Tourer. These slightly clearer tail lights also look pretty good on the move. The changes around front are definitely more subtle. Now, opening up the power tailgate on our Exceed Tourer here, opens up quickly to reveal okay boot capacity, just under 500 litres, not the most in the class, but the opening, which is slightly wider now, is decent. The boot floor isn't too high or too low, and beneath it, you'll actually find a full-size alloy spare in the 5-seat models. Go for a 7-seat model and that's downsized to a space saver. Go for a plug-in hybrid and there's no spare at all. Now, 7 seats is an interesting point because you used to be able to get it much more widely across the range, but Mitsubishi tells us that typically older generation customers buy the Exceed and the Exceed Tourer and they don't want the third row. Younger families typically go for LS or Aspire, which is why they've kept the third row. That's the official line at least. Anyway, you've got a cargo blind here. You can drop those seat backs 60-40 from right here in the boot. And we've got controls to close the power tailgate, and there's a separate control to lock it so you can just walk away. Next up, let's talk running costs, which starts with fuel consumption. And impressively, the Outlander can still take the cheapest 91 octane fuel. You don't have to put premium in this thing. Now, its fuel use is a bit higher than some rivals, but because it's still reasonably affordable to buy, it doesn't probably have to be as frugal as all of the competition. That being said, the claims are in the 7s and 8s litres per 100 kilometre ranges, depending on variant and whether or not you have all-wheel drive. I've been seeing around 9 litres per 100 kilometres in real-world conditions, biasing country roads, so maybe 10, 11 in town. Of course, one thing you can do is go for the plug-in hybrid. It costs you more to buy, but even on a dead battery, its fuel consumption is going to be around 7 litres per 100 Ks, and its update for 2025 gives it WLTP electric range of 86 kilometres if you can be bothered to charge it. Servicing and warranty, well, they're sort of tied together. Mitsubishi puts a lot of marketing into its 10-year warranty, but the standard warranty is actually only 5, extendable year by year out to 10 if you service it with Mitsubishi dealers. Is that fair? Well, you can let us know in the comments. As for the servicing, I'll pop the prices on the screen now. So it's time for us to take the updated Outlander for a drive, and we're doing it in the right place because we're on the, I think it's pronounced Fleurieu Peninsula in South Australia, which is where Mitsubishi Australia has reawakened a long dormant ride and handling program on some really challenging roads, and I've driven them over the last couple of days to see how this vehicle really goes. But these are the roads where Mitsubishi used to tune Magnas, which were often regarded for good driving dynamics in their class, and the 380, which was the last big Australian-made Mitsubishi. But then it all died off, and Mitsubishi never tuned cars like the ASX, which didn't ride and handle well at all. That never got developed in Australia or on these roads. But now head office in Japan has asked Mitsubishi Australia to restart this program in order to make the vehicles drive better. Now, the Outlander, which is already several years into its current life cycle, is too old to have been developed from scratch on these roads. And the budget the engineers were given to do the job was not that significant because the changes that they've made don't go to the core engineering of the vehicle, but they've done their best to address the rougher edges of the vehicle and make the changes that you can do without huge alterations at the factory level. So that means things like changing the internal piston of the existing dampers, altering the rebound and bump stroke of the dampers, switching to a new type of front anti-roll bar, changing the bonnet to steel in order to stop it fluttering and decrease the vibrations running through the vehicle, bit of insulation around the CVT, and a new software tune for the electric power steering. And I might start there, but before I do, let's just mention the powertrains, because I'm in the base one, which is the petrol. That's landed in Australia first. It's a 2.5 litre naturally aspirated petrol 4-cylinder shared with the Nissan X-Trail. Makes 135 kilowatts of power, 244 newton meters of torque, and it is not quick. You can option front wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but either way, it's basically a 10-second 0 to 100 car. You're not going to be winning too many traffic light drag races, but it accelerates from rest to suburban speeds just fine. It's going to be emerging onto highway on-ramps and overtaking in sketchy areas on country roads where this is going to feel slow compared to Skoda Kodiaq, Kia Sorento, Hyundai Santa Fe, vehicles like that. Or you can go for an Outlander plug-in hybrid, which will launch in updated, retuned form in Australia soon, but the jump up in price has been significant in the past. We don't know whether the hybrid might get a little bit cheaper compared to the petrol getting more expensive, particularly under Australia's new emissions law conditions. We'll have to wait and see. But the hybrid is faster everywhere. Obviously, you've got some significant electric running potential out of it, but it's just a more capable powertrain, though you do lose the spare wheel and tyre in its entirety. Now, I mentioned a few rivals, which is important to the ride and handling, which certainly I want to make clear has been improved in this update, but there's still a fair bit of ground left to cover for Mitsubishi in order to catch those rivals on things like control, compliance, comfort, and overall fluency of handling. I want to start with the steering because that's really worked nicely. So they've been able to reduce the dead spot on center, but they've also just slowed the steering response down a bit because it was a bit fast and frenetic in pre-update form, made the front end feel twitchy, and that didn't suit the laid back nature of the Outlander. So I prefer the steering feel now for sure. But it's the suspension where there's more ground left to cover. It is better, and I was able to back-to-back old and new on these tuning roads, which was really interesting. And you notice straight away there's less fidget through the car, there's less vibration, and there's less head toss, which is when your head's bobbing around all the time because there's too much motion being sent into the cabin. All those metrics are maybe 20% better, which is a really good improvement, to be honest. But the Outlander still doesn't ride as well as vehicles like that Skoda or the Hyundai or the Kia. And I think partially it's down to rigidity. There's some aspects of the Outlander where you might be driving through a fast corner on a country road and there's a bump in the middle of the corner. And this SUV feels like it's pulling itself apart from both corners. It just doesn't feel as tight as it should. And that causes various knock-on effects, including a bit of a heave through the body over things like crests on country roads, where your stomach really jumps up and down. The pogo motion after that heave has been reduced from the old car, but you can still sort of sense it there. At low speed, the impact harshness over your potholes and your expansion joints is still a little bit too severe on the 20-inch wheels. You can get 18s on the ES and LS low-end models, but they weren't available for testing, so I don't want to say too much about that. But on the 20s, still a little harsh and abrupt too much of the time. But in particular, around that 60 to 80 kilometer per hour mark, you feel like the car is more settled and more comfortable and quieter in terms of its ride than before too. That being said, I would love to see Mitsubishi's engineers here, who are talented, really tackle the midlife upgrade of this car, and maybe they'd be able to bank things like more bracing, which would increase the rigidity, and maybe things like new dampers in its entirety with something like a frequency selective technology, which would just help the Outlander passively read the road and respond better to bumps in it, which is the sort of thing you see in your Kia Sorentos, or even an adaptive damper like in a high-spec Skoda Kodiaq would just let this car ride and handle with more fluency. But of course, there's a cost to all of those things. The Outlander isn't too offensive in how it rides. It's better than before, but it hasn't quite approached the segment benchmarks yet. Other improvements I'd like to see: there's too frenetic throttle take up from rest. It really wants to go quickly and you've got to modulate your ankle very finely. Again, not the end of the world, of course. The brake pedal, a little bit spongy. Love to see a retune through that at some point. The stability control can be a beat too late in some examples, so you can be going through a corner on a country road and there's gravel splayed across the road, maybe from someone's driveway. The Outlander can allow a little bit too much slip before the stability control controls that and bites down. I'd like to see that addressed. That hasn't been tuned in Australia, so maybe that could be put on the list. That said, the safety features, pretty well calibrated. As a whole, the lane keeping's a bit oversensitive, but you can turn it off. The adaptive cruise works well. And I love to see that technologies like the 360-degree camera have now been made standard across the range. So what's my final verdict on the updated Mitsubishi Outlander? Well, is it perfect? No. Is it improved? Absolutely, by about 20% in my opinion. And given that prices are up between 5 and 9%, well, that could very well make sense. It is more expensive now, but not to a crazy level, and it should be on your test drive list compared to other family segment 5 and 7 seat SUVs. Especially as a rival to something like a Chinese SUV, there is a level of solidity to the Outlander which is appealing. That being said, the best Outlander is a plug-in hybrid, but because we don't know the price of the updated plug-in hybrid, I can't tell you my final verdict on that vehicle just yet. But you'll have to come back for our review on it. With the petrol, there are a few sweet spots. Personally, I would go for the LS front-wheel drive. It's getting more creature comforts across the range, all those improvements to the steering suspension, and it's got smaller 18-inch wheels, which just deliver better ride quality. They always have. The Aspire ups the niceties, but you are on 20s. However, as a little bit of an Easter egg, if you go for the Exceed Tourer, you are actually getting one of the best audio systems in the car industry. Weirdly enough, kind of odd that it landed in something like a Mitsubishi Outlander, but it has. Keen to know all of your opinions. I'd like to see them down below this video in the comments. While you're there, hit subscribe and the notification bell if you want to see more independent Chasing Cars tests like this one. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.